and welcome to Low Season Traveller Live Talks. This is a series of shows which we're producing every week here at Low Season Traveller to show you all what the experiences are like on the continent of Africa during the low season months. Every week we're visiting a different destination and we're going to find out a little bit more about each destination during its low season months, what experiences you can have, and of course how to escape the crowds. And this week it is the turn of Kenya, a destination which many people may be familiar with. You may be familiar with the major parks and areas of Kenya. But this week we wanted to find out a little bit more about maybe some of the undiscovered parts of Kenya, which listeners and viewers may not be aware of. So as always in this series, what we'd like to do first of all is show a video. Apologies to the people who are listening in on the podcast. But we've just got a short video just to give you a little bit of a sense as to what Kenya has to offer. So here is the short video.
Whenever I step onto Lewa, my heart soars because it makes me proud of my natural and national heritage. Seeing spaces like this with the endangered species that we have, some of them so rare and only in Kenya. It makes you proud to be a Kenyan, and then it also makes me proud to be part of a human family that is here to preserve this and conserve this. It is a unique environment. It's a unique ecosystem. The solitude, the silence, the reflection, all of that. It touches your sense, your smell, your hearing, everything comes alive when you're on Lewa. It just brings up the beauty of our country in a small space. So you can look at Lewa as a microcosm of what you can get elsewhere in Kenya. But with a little bit of magic fairy dust on it.
So that just gives you a little bit of an introduction as to why Kenya is so special, and the area that was being spoken about there on the video, Lewa, is one of the areas that we're going to be discussing today as well. So at this juncture, I'd just like to give a shout out to our very good friends at Africa Roam, without whose support we wouldn't be able to have this series. Africa Roam, for those of you that don't know, is a renowned African tour operator offering travelers access to some of the continent's most exclusive and unique experiences. From unattainable culinary opportunities to behind-the-scenes access to art and culture, adrenaline-based adventures, access to the top safari guides, or the majesty of the natural wonders, the team at Africa Roam tailors every trip to exceed their guests' requests. And if you'd like to find out more about Africa Roam, please do visit africaroam.com, or indeed contact Rue, who is the founder and director at Africa Roam, at info@africaroam.com or rue@africaroam.com. So let's turn now to our guest. Those of you that have been following the series so far will be very familiar with our regular guest, Warren Pearson. Warren is a specialist naturalist guide. He's an explorer, a photographer, a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society, and he's done projects with Animal Planet and the National Geographic, among many others. So let's bring Warren in. Coming in now. Are you there, Warren? Hey, how are you?
Hi, Jed. How you doing?
Good to see you. I'm just trying to sort out all of the different views that I've got here on the... Let me just try it that way. Actually, that might be better. Oh, I'll do it that way. Okay. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And you? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. How have you been this past week?
Been very well. It's we're starting to see, I think I'm hoping we're seeing the end of this pandemic. We've in South Africa here, we've been put on a lower level as from tonight, funny enough. So everyone's sort of optimistic and looking forward to the future. And just getting back to, I think, the new normal.
Yeah, I believe that you can buy drink now and cigarettes, apparently.
Yeah, alcohol's allowed again, cigarettes are allowed again. we can travel within our country anywhere again, which is nice. We just need to open our international borders. That's the last thing that's standing at the moment.
Yeah, good stuff. And you look like you're wrapped up pretty warm. What's the weather up to there? Cold, obviously.
Well, yeah, we've had a massive storm front that's coming through, and I just want to say that I hope that we are able to continue with this talk on Kenya today, because I'm listening to lightning and thunder outside and the wind is howling. So I am hoping that we are able to stay connected for the next hour.
I hope so. But if it does go down, if the line goes down for any reason, just to reassure all of our listeners and viewers out there, we have got a couple of videos lined up just in case we need them. It's happened before, but hopefully it won't happen this time. So let's get straight into an overview of Kenya then, I guess, which is the destination that we're talking about today. Destination close to your heart, Warren?
Yeah, it is very close to my heart. For me, Kenya is quintessential Africa. It has just over about 12% of its land that is protected for both national parks and private conservancies. It harbors some of the Earth's most threatened wildlife, and promises an experience that is both spiritually moving as well as visually mind-blowing. It's a place that I love going to, and I try and get to as often as I possibly can. It's a country that straddles the equator. It stretches from the Indian Ocean, where there's beautiful coral reefs, white sandy beaches, and it heads all the way through to the Great Rift Valley on its western border. And the country's got a huge variety of everything, to be honest with you, and exceptional natural beauty. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, and I think we've covered this in a couple of the previous sort of episodes that we've spoken about, and it's the cultures that I find probably most exciting and wanting to spend time with. And Kenya has a diverse a bunch of cultures. It's got 40 different cultures in it, each with their own dialect, their own music, their own traditional dress. Swahili is the well-known language and is the most commonly used language. And I think probably the Maasai tribe are possibly the most well-known, along with the Samburu tribe. But yeah, as I said, there's 40 different cultures, so a lot to explore.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose just on that, I suppose it's Kenya is one of those destinations that I think even people who haven't been on a safari or had that experience, people are familiar with Kenya. People have at least they've heard of Kenya. I think people feel that they know what Kenya offers. Do you think that people do know what Kenya offers, or do you think that actually they probably don't know the half of it?
I think they hear the romanticized part of Kenya. I think what's been put out there. There've been so many books, so many movies made, all about Kenya, and I think possibly the single most sort of greatest influence that the country's had from a tourism perspective, as well as just getting its name into the world, was when the book Out of Africa was written by Karen Blixen, who was a Danish writer. That was first published in, I think, 1937. And in 1985, it was made into a very well-known movie of the same name, Out of Africa.
Robert Redford.
Exactly. Yeah. And, both the movie and the book begin with some very, very famous words. And those words are, I had a farm in Africa at the foot of the Ngong Hills. And that, I just think, it epitomizes Africa. It's got that warm, fuzzy, romantic feeling to it. So absolutely, people, I think they know a lot of it, but I don't think they really know. I think they know the Masai Mara, but there's a lot more to Kenya than what we just most people know of.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see there on the screen the book Out of Africa, and of course the film there with Robert Redford. And I suppose this is one of the images which my kids love, The Lion King. And I think that these kind of movies just kind of help push, I think, the whole of Africa on the map. But I was really interested in this because obviously this is a film that I think all of us are familiar with, if we've got kids or even if we haven't got kids. What I was really surprised at is you sent us this photo as well, which is that the real Pride Rock?
No, that's a rock called Pride Rock, but it's
okay.
Not the real Pride Rock, but it's a fantastic. This is actually in the Bogoria Conservancy and up in Laikipia, which we'll talk about. and it's just a spectacular, the piece of land and rock that sticks out like that. And I think, for kids, and whenever I take kids out there and you talk about the Lion King and Pride Rock, you can almost see these kids' minds just go, wow, this is like, and I mean, it's not the real place. It's not where they got the idea of Pride Rock from. But I think to keep that little bit of mysticism in it for kids and to keep them excited about it, why not? It's a fantastic little story to tell.
I can just, when I look at that photo, I can just imagine all of the creatures just gathering up to the rock. Obviously, it would never happen, but I love that. So look, let's just get straight into it, Warren, if that's okay. Let's embark on our journey. And we're first of all going to look at the park, cities, and the main attractions of Kenya. So, I guess some of these a lot of people will be familiar with. But we're going to start off, of course, with the Masai Mara, which is just, that name itself is synonymous with Kenya and with Africa. And as soon as you say Masai Mara, people sort of feel that they know what you're talking about, I guess.
Exactly. And, I think I wanted to cover the Masai Mara first. And as these sort of areas that we're going to go through are just areas I think that people should keep on their radar when they're wanting to come visit Kenya, because there is so much more than just the Masai Mara, and I hope that we're able to portray this, in the next hour or so. So the Masai Mara is on the southwestern border of Kenya. It borders with Tanzania's Serengeti National Park. It's part of the bigger Serengeti Mara ecosystem, and it's probably most famous for what's known as the greatest show on Earth, and that's the annual wildebeest migration that comes through. And that's got zebra, wildebeest, antelope species. But to be honest with you, for me, the Mara is best when the migration is not there. And people are going to listen to me and say, "Are you mad?" But there's so much more going on in the Mara than just the wildebeest migration. And and it's a stunning piece of land. It remains Kenya's most famous reserve, and I think it's purely thanks to TV shows, documentaries, a lot of good marketing that people go there. But for me, people swarm there during the months of July and August, and this is a time, and September pushing, and this is a time that I typically don't want to be there. Yeah. If I can go there to the Mara and in the low season, you've literally got the entire Masai Mara to yourself, and you don't have the crowds, you don't have the people. And you have as good game viewing as you would when the migration is there. So, for me, it's at the time that people it depends. If people want to go there and purely go see the migration, I'm not going to hold them back and say, yeah, this is when you should go. But know that you're also going to be fighting with, I want to say hundreds, but a lot of other vehicles.
Yeah, you're not going to be on your own.
You're not going to be on your own, and you're going to be jostling for position, and you're going to be trying to get into it's not a nice experience at all for me. So for me, the best time in the Masai Mara is when the migration is not there. As I said, it feels like you have the entire place to yourself. And the best part of it, you don't have the crowds. Yeah,
which is an absolute bonus. Obviously, there's images there from the migration.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot.
And there are resident wildebeest that are there, so it's not like you're going to not see certain animals. You're going to see a lot of animals, irrespective of when the migration is there. And this is why I always try and push. People come to Africa. Don't just go and tick off and say I've seen the migration. Yes, it is something that I think people should see and try and see, but don't plan your entire trip just around when the migration is going.
Yeah. Amboseli, that's probably, would that be the sort of the second sort of most well-known area of Kenya, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I would say possibly very close to maybe Tsavo as well, which we'll talk about next. Yeah. But Amboseli National Park, definitely. It's on the southern border of Kenya that borders with Tanzania. Amboseli is a Maasai word that means salty dust, just to give you an idea of what Amboseli can be like. But Amboseli is where those very classic postcard pictures of the snow-capped peaks of Kilimanjaro looming over these massive herds of elephants over the prides below, and there's a perfect picture of it. It's that's Amboseli, and that's when anyone thinks of Amboseli, that's typically probably what they would be thinking of.
Yeah.
But the park itself has a diverse habitat, from open plains, from acacia woodlands, rocky bush country, swamps, marshes, and covers part of an ancient Pliocene lake basin, which is now dry. And only after heavy rains does that temporary lake called Lake Amboseli does it flood. And this to me is, if you don't mind sort of playing around with a bit of sort of mud and during the wet season and so-called low season, this to me is the best time to be there. There's no dust. There's absence of people. Wildlife is as good. But most importantly, you have a higher, and I'm talking about a much higher chance of seeing the peak of Kilimanjaro, because typically you don't normally see the peak of Kilimanjaro because it's always covered in cloud, and typically during the so-called high season when people go there in their throngs. So low season for me, Amboseli, if you want those pictures, those postcard pictures, that's it.
Really? It's interesting, isn't it? Because you would, whenever we see the most common photos, be it on travel websites or anything else, they're all similar to the ones that we've just shown. You'd be devastated if you got there and you couldn't see it. It does remind me actually of, it reminds me a little bit of in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, they have the statue of Christ the Redeemer. And I've been on 3 occasions. And even when you get, have you been there?
I haven't. No, I haven't.
Even when you go up to the top of Corcovado Mountain, and you're right under the statue of Christ the Redeemer, you can't see it if there's any cloud around at all. So you're absolutely gutted. You go all the way to see it, and you can't see it because of the cloud. You have to be very, very lucky with the weather. But I thought it was interesting. And obviously, you still have all of the wildlife there. Moving on from
all the wild.
All still there in the low season. Is it harder to see the wildlife during the low season? Is it a challenge, or is it again? Does this come down to having the right trackers and rangers and guides with you?
It comes down to having the right guide, definitely. It does come down to a little bit of weather with the wet season, because when it does get very wet and muddy, you are restricted to certain areas, and it just makes it a little bit more challenging. But you know what? If you want adventure and you don't mind sort of getting your way through the mud and sometimes maybe getting stuck, it's not going to disappoint. I can promise you that.
Yep, love it. On then to Tsavo East and West.
So I've put Tsavo East and West as one. They're 2 separate parks, but they're very close to each other, right next to each other. But together they form Kenya's most expansive protected area. They shelter around a third of the elephants, of the country's elephants. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to break it up into Tsavo West just for now. Tsavo West is best for the wildlife viewing. So if you specifically want to go for just wildlife and big game and seeing lots of animals all the time, stick to the western side. The animals are attracted there by springs, rivers, there's rapids, there's swamplands, lakes. And it's probably the most famous part of I'd say Tsavo West would be the Chiyulu. I always get this, I always never pronounce this correctly, so I do apologize up front. But the Chiyulu Hills, and it has a surreal backdrop in this region. It's also one thing which I'm going to talk about, horse riding, which we'll talk about a bit later. Mm-hmm. But it's one of the areas in Kenya which is phenomenal for horse riding. So Tsavo West, best for wildlife. Tsavo East, just to give you an idea, it's 9 times bigger than the Masai Mara. It's wild. Wow. It's really wild. I mean, you can go on a 3-hour game drive there and not see another vehicle. The wildlife viewing is harder. It's more spaced out. It is difficult to see a lot of animals. But to me, if you want to go for a pure wilderness experience of pure wildlife, wild and raw Africa, Tsavo East is spectacular. It really is. It feels like you're in the middle of deepest, darkest Africa as you would think 200 years ago. But I think, what has made Tsavo really well known is more on the negative side of it, I should say, actually, is the story of the man-eating lions of Tsavo. And there was a movie actually made of this. I think it was in the mid-90s, called Ghost in the Darkness. And this is about two lions in 1898 that terrorized crews constructing a railroad bridge over the Savo River, killing, and some people say, up to 135 people. And I believe that has been significantly reduced recently to around 30 people, and that's due to sort of isotopic signatures of the bone and hair of these two lions they're actually housed in the Chicago Museum at the moment. So you can go, if you're in Chicago, you can go and have a look at these two lions that have sort of become very well known for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting. There was a gentleman called Lieutenant Colonel John Patterson who shot the lions. He was sent out there to find the lions and shoot them. And he sold their bodies to the Field Museum in Chicago for around $5,000.
Wow.
So just quite an interesting story around it. And sort of, as I see, most people, when I talk about Savo, they say, about the man-eating lions. And these were just two males that sort of were well known. And a lot of people ask me, are lions in that region, in Savo, are they more bloodthirsty than other lions? Do they specifically focus on humans more than anywhere else in Africa? And no, it's not the case. It's for me, lions attack people for the same reason. Their forebears a century ago. It's humans encroaching onto their territory. And it's all the same reasons as you would find today. Injured lions are especially dangerous. One of these man-eaters actually had a massive sort of dental issue. There was I think it was some form of disease in the lower canine. And you can imagine how that must have felt. So, it's, if you can't chew properly or catch properly, you try and focus on the easiest thing out there. And they learned very quickly that human beings were pretty easy animals to catch. And going back even longer than sort of the 1800s, for centuries, Arab slave caravans had passed through Savo on the way to Mombasa. A lot of slaves were dying from sleeping sickness or just, pure sort of malnutrition or whatever it could have been. They were just left there. So I think, lions just realized that these two-legged apes were pretty easy to catch.
Yeah.
But an interesting story.
Very much so. Very much so. It's interesting because I think sometimes we have this idea that the dangers on safari wildlife experiences in Africa, that we tend to think that lions would be the number one. Lions, leopards, the big cats, etc. The main killer, number one killer in Africa, is it? Am I right in saying it's the hippo?
So yeah, the animal that has the most kills, if I can put it like that, or human kills, would be the hippo. And it comes down to, if you think about hippo habitat, pretty much anywhere in Africa where you have large bodies of water, rivers, lakes, that kind of stuff, you will still find hippos. Hippos come out of the water at night to go and feed. They eat grass. They don't eat meat. But they make these designated pathways. So every night they'll walk out and they'll have a single pathway, it's literally, I'd say 30 centimeters, probably a bit longer, wide. So it's a very easy path. And it's a path that humans will use often. And particularly if you think of tribes within Africa living close to water sources, they go down to these water sources to go and get water for daily use. Yeah. And if you're walking on that path and you come in contact with a hippo and a hippo sees you, it's fight or flight. And for a hippo, unfortunately, if it's out of its comfort zone, which is the water, it's going to fight. And unfortunately, people, they're exceptionally fast. They have these massive teeth. And it's a defense mechanism. They don't do it to eat you. They do it literally just to get rid of a threat. So sadly, hippos do kill the most amount of people. They have that statistic. The most dangerous animal in Africa, large animal in Africa, according to myself and probably most people that are probably in my field of work would agree, would be the buffalo, the African buffalo.
Right.
It's a cantankerous old male, basically. It's an old man that is just, he's woken up on the wrong side of the bed. You just don't know what they're going to do. So
Right.
yeah, that's the most. I would put it into the bracket of the most dangerous animal out there.
It's intriguing because obviously, I thought you were going to say the elephant actually, but the buffalo. I wouldn't have thought that, but then at the same time, I've never seen a buffalo close up, but I imagine they're larger than photographs do them justice for.
Yeah, sorry, Jed, you are coming through quite broken there, so I didn't
Oh
catch
no,
all
I
of
was
that.
just saying that I thought you were going to tell me that it was the elephant, but I was saying I guess that the buffalo, in sheer weight of numbers, there's a lot more buffalo around, but also they're pretty big as well. They're probably bigger than most photographs do justice, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think with regards to an elephant, I mean, elephants are they gentle giants, and unless you deliberately or undeliberately try and tick it off and make it upset, it's going to sort of charge you and defend itself.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a buffalo. An elephant gives you a warning. A buffalo, the one thing about a buffalo, it doesn't give you a warning. It looks at you,
Right.
and we always say when a buffalo looks at you, it looks down its snout, and it's as if you owe it money. It's like, okay, I'm coming to collect what you owe me, and I'm coming. I'm not going to give up. So yeah, if you understand animal behavior and you can read an elephant, you will know that's a warning. Get out the way. And a lion will do the same thing. A leopard will do the same thing. They will warn you. Where buffalo don't do it.
Okay. Right. I'm now suitably nervous of buffalo.
Don't think they're big cattle. They're not.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking actually, and I'm sure I'm not the only one either. Let's move on to Mount Kenya.
So one thing about Mount Kenya, and I always wonder how many people know this or don't know it, but it's Africa's second highest mountain at just over 5,000 meters tall. It's also got snow on the top. It's got glaciers on the top. There's a picture of it in the distance. So this is looking from one of the conservancies in the northern part of Kenya. So I'm looking south now at the mountain. Unlike Kilimanjaro, you'll find very few visitors to this mountain. It's got gorgeous flora. It's got wildlife. It's seriously beautiful in contrast to Kilimanjaro's very barren and very busy slopes. And just spending time in the villages surrounding Mount Kenya, excuse me, it offers an insight into life in the shadow of that mountain. You start to understand how the mountain works and what happens. And, there's a nearby Mau Mau cave, which is a national monument that sheltered freedom fighters in the late 1950s. There's hikes that you can go up. So you have multi-day hikes very similar to Kilimanjaro up to the point. So not up to the summit, but up to the point. There's a point called Point Lenana, and that's at about 4,900 meters high. That you can access comfortably without specialized climbing equipment.
Okay.
So if you want to get people that just want to go and tick it off, they can get to that point and they cannot go any higher. But it's less crowded, it's less expensive. If you want to go to the two highest points on the mountain, there's two separate peaks, one called Batia and the other one called Nilion. You need to be an experienced climber and you need to have specialist equipment to climb up to the top. But I haven't climbed to the top. I'm not a massive mountain climber. I'm more of a mountain hiker. Mm-hmm. But it's a beautiful mountain to be on, and it's as I said, second highest in Africa, and also not to be underestimated.
Yeah, for sure. I guess for those that are dedicated climbers, it's probably a little bit more of a challenge, actually, ironically, than the tallest mountain in Africa as well.
Absolutely.
So on then to Aberdares.
So the Aberdares National Park, and the Aberdares is actually a range of mountains, and it's actually Mount Kenya is part of that range. So this is just to the western side of Mount Kenya, and it's an ancient range that soars up to about 4,000 meters in height. It's strangely unknown. Not many people do know of it. It has forested slopes. It harbors ravines, stunning waterfalls, a fantastic variety of wildlife. Many monkeys. One exactly there is a colobus monkey. It has a possibility of the elusive golden cat to be found. It has over sort of 250, I think, species of bird. The moorlands at high altitude are just spectacular. But I think what the park is probably best known for those that do know the park, is the site of 2 hotels. And I'm not a fan of big hotels in wildlife areas, but these hotels are called the Treetops Hotel and the Ark. Treetops gained, I think, overnight fame in I must remember now, 1951, 52, maybe, I think, when it hosted Princess Elizabeth, or then Princess Elizabeth, now Queen Elizabeth. And this is where she found out that her father, King George, had died, and she became the uncrowned queen of the United Kingdom. So I think that was what a lot of people that do follow the monarchy probably will know of the Aberdares. For those that don't, will now know. That's what it's very famous for. But for me, what I try and, whenever I go to the Aberdares, I have one thing on my mind, to be honest with you, and it's probably one of the few places in Africa that you have a very, very good chance of, and you need a lot of luck with that, of seeing a melanistic leopard, or a black leopard. So like a black panther, as most people would incorrectly call it, like a black jaguar, it's a melanistic animal it's all black. A very, very rare animal species to find. And just because I love leopards as much as I do, it's something that I would love to try and find. I'm yet to see one. So not many people have seen them. But this is one of the areas in Africa that, if you really want to give it a go, that's where you go.
Are there many of them in the world?
No one really knows the answer to that, because it's
really?
Most people say no. It's you get black. The word black panther is an incorrect name. It's either you get a black jaguar or you get a black leopard. Panther is the scientific name, called Panthera. So Panthera for lion, leopard, tiger, jaguar. So not many in the world. I think you probably find more black jaguars, or being able to see more black jaguars in South America that you would a black leopard. But it's an animal that is very high on my list to see.
Yeah, for sure. On then to Lake Nakuru.
So this is just one of the lakes in Kenya's Rift Valley, and what I like about it entices a huge variety of wildlife to its waters. It's got big predators, it's got giraffe, buffalo, and it's a fantastic place to see both black and white rhino. But for me, the bird life that it provides, it's the most spectacular scenes of bird life. It just really is. The lake at the right time, and this is typically January or February, it periodically turns a very soft pink with some 2-odd million flamingos that come down to the waters. And I've spoken about this on all the podcasts that we've spoken about in Facebook Live sessions, is the bird species. And I mention birds because, people come to Africa, really, it's the last thing on their mind is birds. But it's probably one thing that they probably leave Africa going, whoa, I had no idea there were so many stunning birds on this continent. And it's just something that no matter where you go in Africa, if you are interested in, not just in every bird, just any of the beautiful big species, there's always something to look at, and look, this picture that you've got on there now of flamingos, it's a stunning photograph, and it just hopefully should just pull people in to say, there's animals out there, but the bird life is as good. And that's what I love about Lake
some of the birds that I've seen just while we've been recording this series, and I've been researching the photographs. Some of the birds are just breathtakingly beautiful, and like you were saying, not it wouldn't always be my first thought. If we're talking about wildlife in Africa, you don't automatically think bird life, but actually, just some stunning birds. What was the shoe-billed, what was that one? That was
the shoe-billed stork. Yeah, the
shoe-billed stork. That blew me away, especially the size of it as well. It's like 5 foot tall or whatever. just huge.
Well, when we head to the next episode, which is going to cover Rwanda, Uganda, and the Eastern DRC, shoeball stalk's going to pop up again there. So yeah,
any opportunity I can get. But that looks absolutely incredible, Lake Nakuru, and that's a beautiful photograph of it just there as well. Laikipia. So probably more well known from a word of people hearing about Laikipia in Kenya. I'm not sure if many people know where it is or what it consists of. Basically it's a mosaic of several dozen private and community-owned sanctuaries, and it's all overseen by a non-profit called the Laikipia Wildlife Foundation. And this is actually Kenya's second largest conservancy after Tsavo. Ecologically, the plateau is a transitional zone between the Central Highlands and the Northern Desert. So it sits just north and slightly northwest of Mount Kenya, if that puts it into perspective. And as such, it provides an important stronghold for rarities of animals such as the Grevy's zebra, the black rhino, the African wild dog. It supports substantial numbers of lion, leopard, cheetah, and along with sort of dry country specials such as the reticulated giraffe, greater and lesser kudu, the Gerenuk antelope, which is a really crazy looking antelope. I think you got a picture a bit later on of one of mine when we get to Samburu, and oryx, Cordobiza oryx. So it's names that are associated with Laikipia would be Olpagetta, Sosian, Borana, Lewa, the video we saw right in the beginning. And if you just go back one picture quickly, is the one thing I like about Laikipia is the push and the focus that they have on their anti-poaching patrols that they have out there. And what I enjoy about, if I ever go to these areas, is trying to go and spend as much time with these gentlemen as I can. And I mean, this is dedication on another level. I mean, these gentlemen are now in this picture, they're getting ready for a night deployment. So they're going to be literally going to go spend 2 nights out camping in the middle of the bush on a anti-poaching patrol. They team up in twos and they head out. And I can't tell you how much respect I have for these gentlemen and women. There's women in this involved as well. These are the people that are keeping the wildlife in Africa safe. And how dangerous is it? I mean, we hear a lot about poachers. We don't really know much about them. When up here in Northern Europe, just how dangerous is this job that these guys are doing in order to protect the wildlife?
It's very dangerous, Jed. It's you're on the front line of a war. To be honest with you, that's literally what is happening. It's people. Excuse me. I often say, people they don't have to worry about the animals, because the animals are not their concern. From a danger perspective, it's not. Excuse me. They don't have to worry about the animals. They have to worry about the people. And they work very closely with surrounding communities. They try and have these relationships with the communities will alert them to suspicious individuals coming in. It's a much broader subject than just these guys going out there on a patrol and patrolling an area. It goes a lot wider than that. And the Laikipia area is well known for having a phenomenal anti-poaching or ranger setup. They've got some top-notch technology. It's just, I would love, for me personally, I would love to go and spend time with these guys in the field and just get to know them better if I'm on a safari. And it's something that I always try and push people to do, is spend time with these gentlemen, because it's something that you'll come back a different person. They're humble, they're warm, they're welcoming, and as I said, completely dedicated. Yeah,
and doing a wonderful job, clearly. On to Samburu.
So Samburu, possibly one of my more favorite areas in Kenya. This is now geographic, it's north and center of the country. In April to June, the rainfall can interrupt some drives. So just got to sort of, with all these areas, actually, we just got to be sort of double sure of checking when you want to go there and just knowing when the wet season is. So basically, April, May as usual. But this is a name that's it's not well known. I think more the tribe is well known, but the actual reserve and the surrounding area is not that well known. It receives very few visitors, and it feels like another true African wilderness, which is what I really love about it. It has a really scorched landscape, ranges from rugged cliffs to meandering brown rivers, and that picture there of mine is it's just elephants crossing a river called the Iwasu Neguro River. And this nourishes Samburu's very scruffy vegetation, and all the it's got abundant wildlife, and they're all attracted to this river. You got these down palms that you can see there in the background, they just give a completely different view to a very dry area, which is scenically it's stunning. But for me, one of the highlights of Samburu and visiting Samburu is not only the tribes and the Samburu tribe, which is very similar to the Maasai tribe. But it's the wildlife and the people that are there in that area, and spending time once again with the tribes. So with the Samburu tribe, most of the lodges there will have local Samburu that will be your guide. And to me, it's people need to get to know these gentlemen and these women, and get out there and go and visit some of the manyatas where they live, and spend time with them, and really get to know these people that are living in and around wildlife, which I think is it's a testament to show how people can actually do this and do it properly. But as I said, the wildlife side of it, it's you get some specimens which are really rare. I've mentioned it already: reticulated giraffe, the Grevy's zebra, Bison oryx, Gerenuk, Somali ostrich. So it's a place that I would push people to go and spend at least 3, 4, sometimes 5 days into that area and go and explore. And it's one of the, if I can say, one of the special things I'm going to talk about a bit later, when we talk about 95% of what people don't normally go and visit. This is part of what's known as the Northern Frontier District, and it's to helicopter over this area is it's scenically stunning.
Yeah, love it. I love again another just beautiful bird, some form of kingfisher, I think.
That's a brown-hooded kingfisher. Yeah,
absolutely beautiful. And then these, I don't know if these are specialists there. These are pygmy mongoose, is it? Mongoose?
So
is it mongoose or mongooses?
Those are dwarf mongoose. Dwarf mongoose.
Dwarf mongoose. Yeah.
Mongooses. It's mongoose.
And then of course we have the Samburu people, as you mentioned there. On then to Mount Meru, which people may be familiar with. There's an image.
So I think with Mount Meru is where George and Joy Adamson, which they released a lioness called Elsa, who became a very famous lioness back into the wild, and their story about this is portrayed in the book and the film called Born Free. So as soon as I say Born Free, people sort of say, "Oh yes, I know what you're talking about." But for more than a decade, I think it was the late 1980s, 90s. And it really it's a stunning wilderness area, was virtually off limits purely because of out of control poaching. It was then the French embassy, funny enough, that actually sort of pushed for the park along with the Kenyan Wildlife Service, and it was comprehensively restored. So it's now it's a park that not many people visit. It's got a dedicated force of rangers. It's got a poacher-proof rhino sanctuary that is in it now. So that has both black and white rhino, and it's a park that, as I said, people sort of brush it past and go, it doesn't sound too interesting to me. But from a wildlife perspective, from not many people going there, from a history perspective, it's got a lot to offer. And I always say, don't forget about it. Let's put it on that list of yours.
Yeah. I love that. And here we just wanted to sort of highlight. There's many people in the UK that might be familiar with the Born Free Foundation, which is a foundation which does an awful lot of great work helping to conserve wildlife in Africa. Just tell us a little bit about how they got the name and who founded this.
But it has got an interesting history to it, because in the actual two actors in the film Born Free was Virginia McKenna and Bill Travers. They did another movie called what was the name of it now? An Elephant. I think it was called An Elephant Called Slowly. That's right, An Elephant Called Slowly. And this was about a small an elephant calf called Pole Pole. Now Pole Pole is Swahili for slowly, slowly. Okay. And when the movie was finished, the Kenyan government gifted Pole Pole, this elephant calf, to the London Zoo. Now, both Virginia McKenna and Bill Travers were against this, and they tried to stop it from happening. Irrespective, it still went ahead. And both of them sort of said, no, hang on, we need to do something more to stop this kind of thing happening. We don't want wild elephants going to zoos, or any wild animal heading to a zoo. So they launched the campaign, and what now Born Free has come out of it, the Born Free Foundation. So that's a very short history on exactly how it came about, but that's the history to it. Yeah,
but encourage all of our viewers and listeners to check out the Born Free Foundation's work. They do a lot of great work, and you can see examples of it on their website, which is www.bornfree.org.uk, if you'd like to look it up.
Yeah.
Mombasa and Swahili Coast. Yep, absolutely. On to Mombasa and the coast.
So yeah, I think a lot of people don't think about Kenya and being a coastal destination. And I think with Mombasa, Mombasa's got a history. It's got a beautiful history. It's got a colorful history. It's very complex as well. And it's synonymous with its vibrant markets that it has. So, the island city, it dates back almost 1,000 years with the 16th century forts and Swahili architecture and Islamic mosques. And then probably the most sort of imposing figure on Mombasa is in the Old Town Harbour, which, there's an old fort called Fort Jesus. And this was constructed by the Portuguese in the 1500s. It has massively thick seaward walls, turrets rising up to about 16 meters in height. And it was a very strategic, important building on the East African coast for centuries, until the British then took it over. I think the British took it over in about 1895, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So, Mombasa it's an interesting place to go and visit. I would say, go and spend some time, have a bit of a time in Mombasa. There is a lot to see from a historical perspective. But I think what Mombasa is best known for is that it's the gateway to what's known as the Swahili coast. And this is a piece of coastline that can rival, I think, possibly any tropical island. It has luxurious resorts to secluded keys, and it's a diver's paradise. The waters of the Indian Ocean there are always in their mid-20s. So it's sometimes it feels like you're in a bath most of the time.
Yeah.
It has certain areas I'll just very quickly mention. There's Watamu. It's a resort town that does an overgrown fishing village sort of a little bit justice. It's handsome beaches. It's a really spectacular part of the coastline. Well, if they want to finish a safari, they can head to the Kenyan coast. And as I said, there's Watamu, there's Malindi, there's beautiful snorkeling and scuba diving off the calm waters of Turtle Bay. It's and very close, funny enough, to Watamu. Believe it or not, there's an old-ruined medieval city that's now been swallowed up by the jungle. It's called the City of Jedi. And allegedly it was deserted when its occupants thought that there was a bunch of cannibals that were approaching it. So basically the city was deserted. So a little bit of history there as well, and just different things to go and see. It's a destination that if you've had a really great safari and you want to go and spend some time on the coast, on the beautiful beaches, scuba diving, snorkeling, this is the place that you want to go. So it's very easy to do.
A great twin center for anybody out there that that wants to try an introduction to a safari. I think it was when I was at Kioni we used to sell, a lot of these trips whereby people would want a 14-day vacation, and they never wanted to fully commit to a safari because they weren't sure as to whether a safari was for them, which may sound crazy. So what we used to sell at Kiwoni was 3 or 4 day safaris in Savo, followed by the rest of the time on the beach at Mombasa. And it used to allow them an opportunity to understand what the safari is. But 9 times out of 10, of course, they came back saying that they didn't have enough time on the safari.
It's always like that, yeah.
On then to the capital, Nairobi.
All right, so I'm looking at our time and thinking we're going to go through this very quickly. So
okay.
Nairobi, I think a lot of people overlook. For me, Nairobi, it's got a lot to offer, and I think people should spend a night or two just actually visiting Nairobi. There is a lot to see. It's got a really bad reputation. I'm not sure why people have given it a bad reputation. It's like any big city around the world that sort of goes through its ups and downs. But it's got some spectacular hotels, some stunning restaurants. Stunning malls, shopping areas, markets or Maasai markets. But for me, it's got stuff like, which I think you should go and spend some time at. It's things like the Elephant Orphanage, which is run by the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, where you can get really close to orphaned elephants. They do some really great work out there. The Giraffe Center, run by the African Fund for Endangered Wildlife, where you can literally look into the eyes of a Rothschild giraffe at its own height. And then the picture that you just skipped on there, which was the Karen Blixen Museum, and that's just celebrating the life of the Danish writer who lived there. So don't skip Nairobi. Don't think that it's a quick in and out. I would always spend some time there. There is always a lot to go and see. There's a lot of history to Kenya and how Kenya started in East Africa. How Nairobi started. So yeah, definitely spend some time in Nairobi.
Yeah, and most people presumably will be flying in and out of Nairobi anyway, so very easy to to stay for a couple of days and just explore what's in and around Nairobi.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's of course the giraffes at eye level, which must be a bit strange. So then, you mentioned to us in the preparation for this, you're saying you wanted to highlight. There's a number of items which are not on 95% of people's itineraries, which of course is right down our street, really, on Low Season Traveller. This is the kind of stuff which we're really interested in. So let's click through these. Head west for the best tea in Kenya. Who knew?
So I'm going to go through these. I think I won't say relatively quickly, but I'm just going to keep going through them, Jed, just so we have sort of time at hand. But these are just some of the parts which I feel a lot of people don't get taught, or just it's not enough 95% of the time. So for me, it's head west, and Kenya is well known for its tea. And the west side, it's famous for its green quilt of tea bushes and blankets the landscape. This rolls down to the shores of Lake Victoria, and I just feel that once you've sipped tea there, it's you're not going to drink the tea or that drink again in quite the same light. It's clear, it's smokily aromatic, and just having pure Kenyan tea leaves is something that I don't know. I just think that everyone should have.
Absolutely.
So then, if we head down to something else, which I always try and get people to go. It's a lot harder than it sounds, but visiting Mount Elgon and its troglodyte elephants. And for those that don't know what troglodyte is, it's a man or someone that lives in a cave. And on the border with Uganda, you find Mount Elgon, and it's a towering 24 million year old volcanic giant. It's 80 kilometers in diameter. It rises up to about 4,300 meters in height, which makes it the oldest extinct volcano in East Africa. It has 5 major peaks, 3 in Uganda, 2 in Kenya, and it's honeycombed by bat-filled labyrinths, caverns with troglodyte elephants that, this is why I try and go there to try and catch these elephants. and they go and they mine for salt. It's an ideal for a gentle stroll, or if you want a strenuous trek, you can have a strenuous trek at the same time. But for me, it's the elephants that's I always try and sort of get people to go there, because it's just a place that it's just out of this world.
When you say they mine for salt, I'm just imagining them with pickaxes, over their shoulders. What are they? They're looking for. This is like sort of for the minerals, but they go into the caves just specifically to get the minerals. Is that right?
Yeah. So they with their tusks, they go and they dig into the sides, and they go and look for minerals. They're looking for just enhancing their diet with minerals, and the salt is just more of a broader term for a whole bunch of different minerals that are included in that. So potassium, sodium, calcium, you name it.
Yep. Okay, fabulous. The troglodyte elephants, love it.
Troglodyte elephants.
A lake with a difference.
So now a lake with a difference, and this to me is a bit of a crazy lake, and to appreciate the power of what formed the Great Rift Valley. To me, you need to go visit Lake Bogoria, and this is possibly the most dramatic, yet it's possibly also the least visited of the Great Rift Lakes. It's a very long, thin ribbon of stunningly blue water, and it's often covered in flamingos. While around on the shore, you have 200 odd boiling geysers spewing jets of water into the air that reek of sulfur. Add to this the bizarre spectacle of visitors boiling eggs in the bubbling rock pools and fishing them out with block sticks. It's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. And it's literally like you have this vision of an insanely beautiful hell. That's the best way I can try and explain it. It is just, it's a lake that, I adore it. And the bird life there, once again, is spectacular.
Yeah. I bet it stinks like hell as well.
The sulfur smell is horrible. It really is horrible. But that's you understand. It's actually quite interesting. It was one of the late presidents of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta. He had a campsite there, and he often used to bring his cabinet out there for meetings, and they used to hate it.
I bet. You wouldn't know if it was the tourist eggs boiling or whether that was just the sulfur. Exactly. I can well imagine.
Exactly.
Helicopter over the NFT.
So the NFT is the old name for the Northern Frontier District. It's now known as the Northern Rangelands Trust. Mm-hmm. And for me, just this is where Samburu is, and slightly north of that. You get a helicopter, and I know people go, well, helicopters are expensive to hire, but this is worth every cent of it. You get up high, you can get out onto inaccessible parts of this, the Cholbi Desert or the Matthews Range or the snowy peaks of Mount Kenya. You get into areas and you go have picnics up there, and it's one of these experiences which you will never ever forget.
Yeah, and I guess to get to a lot of these places, it's probably one of the pretty much the only ways you can get there is by helicopter as well. So you really are getting truly off the beaten track to places which people rarely go to as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, love it. On then to mountain biking in hell. Love it. Love it.
So mountain biking in hell is it's at Hell's Gate National Park, and this is the only national park in Kenya where you can actually ride mountain bikes, and you can hire them as well. It's a cleft deep into the floor of the Rift Valley. It offers volcanic landscape. It's these tortured basalt cliffs, rock towers, steaming vents of belching plumes of steam that just it feels like you could be in hell. And it's known as one of the largest geothermal fields in the world. And interestingly enough, when we talk about the origins of Lion King's Pride Rock, there's a lot of false information out there that this came from Hell's Gate National Park, and that's not correct. So just to correct everyone in all the Google searches, if you're looking for the origin of Pride Rock, a lot of it will take you to Hell's Gate National Park, but it's actually incorrect. It's not the correct place.
Okay, where is it?
But There is no correct place for Pride Rock. That's the thing.
Okay, it's made up in Disney's head.
Exactly.
Spot a Situnga.
So a Situnga is a very special antelope. It's a very shy antelope, actually. And you go and do this if you want to go do it. It's in Kenya's smallest national park, which is Saiwa Swamp. And in this national park, it has none of the usual pop-up safari vehicles that you'll see in the rest of the country. It actually has no cars at all. It just has these woodland paths that wind through a luminous green realm. You've got dragonflies, butterflies, monkeys, stunning birds. And to go and look for this semi-aquatic Sitatunga antelope, it's for me, if you have people that want to go and look for an antelope that is very rarely seen in parts of Africa, purely because of their shyness, this is a place I'd go and look, and it's probably the best place and only place in Kenya to go and do this.
Incredible. Looks like an incredible park as well. Actually, I like that. I like that fact that there's just the walkways and that there aren't the cars, and it's swampland. Just very, very different to some of the other parks that we've been sort of talking about. That to me sounds wonderful. I'd imagine there's a lot of bird life there as well, which is incredible.
Exactly, there is. It's. I mean, as I said, it's small. It's probably about 3 square kilometers. It's really not big at all. But just the fact that there's hardly any people there and there's definitely no cars there, that just it's an appeal to me.
Yep, me too. Sundowner on the equator.
So yeah, one of the countries that you can do this in, and there's actually 2 wildlife areas that you can actually go and be on an actual safari and get a sundown, and that is in Meru National Park, which we've spoken about, and Old Pajita in Laikipia. So these are the 2 wilderness areas that you can go and have a sundowner, literally on the equator if you want. But for me, and I think this is most people's sort of idea of a safari, you got to go have your regulatory sundowner as the sun goes setting. But it's this old Edwardian sort of pastime is something which I think everyone needs to do, and just take the time to slow down and just watch the sunset.
Yeah.
And to say that you're on the equator, or pretty much thereabout on the equator, is get your chair, sit back, cocktail in hand, and just enjoy the show.
God, yeah, I could do with a bit of that. To be honest, it looks absolutely idyllic.
The gin and tonic in hand.
Absolutely, yeah. Get birding, more than 1,070 species, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, Kenya is, this is something which we've spoken about before on the birding side of it, and just to put into perspective, the UK has, I think, just over 600 species of bird. Kenya has just over 1,000 species. Kenya has the second most extensive bird list of any country in Africa. So for anyone that is interested in birds, Kenya is definitely the country that you want to come to. And there are many, many stunning spots in Kenya to do this. A top spot for me would probably be Lake Baringo, but there are many others. Any of the national parks. There's forests. There's all sorts of areas that you can go through, and it's whether you're a professional or you're an amateur. It doesn't matter. What level you're at. It's just something that you could really do. And you've just shown a picture there of a Villiers black weaver. That's a Von der Decken's hornbull. And I think the next one, if I remember,
this one's gorgeous. What's this?
So that's a lilac-breasted roller. And it is. And this is, Jed, this is for me how you start people birding. You show them these beautiful species. And, you get a lot of what's known as LBJs, which are little brown jobs. And if you start showing people these little brown jobs, that they're going to lose interest. They're not going to want to sort of take it up. But you show them this lilac-breasted roller, for example. Or if you skip back a slide to the hornbill, that's a Von der Decken's hornbill. And this bird was well known now in The Lion King as Zazu. So the first thing you do is you tell the kids, you remember Zazu from The Lion King, and this is the same kind of bird, or this is Zazu's cousin. and suddenly you got interest now. And this is just where you start. There are so many different beautiful birds in Africa to look at.
Yeah, love it. But that roller is that's just glorious.
It is a stunning bird. Yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
run with a Kenyan. Or I like to say, like, run wild. You know, I think the one thing that Kenya is very well known for is it's probably, you know, got some of the most famous athletes in the world, and it's got a very famous race called the Lewa Marathon, which takes place actually in the Lewa Conservancy, and this allows you to run through stunning, pristine wilderness of Laikipia. You know, it's a private area. Yeah, you have rangers and people on the side to make sure that the wildlife keeps at its bay. But, you know, not just doing this marathon. If you are on safari and you're in an area where it allows you, you know, I can guarantee you now, if you ask most Kenyans, do you want to go for a run? They'll say, let's go. And just be careful what you ask for, because, you know, your 5-kilometer run might be like their 25-kilometer runs. So just be careful.
Have you done the Lua Marathon or part of it?
No, I'm not a runner. I stick to water and I stick to wheels.
Fair play to you. I think I'd be the same, to be honest. I think my running days are behind me, sadly.
The nice thing with the Lewa Marathon is that you have Mount Kenya in the background, which is just puts it into this complete different way of looking at Africa.
Listen, if I was gonna run anywhere, I'm not really a runner as such, but I'd go for a run through Lua, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a spectacular thing to do. Safari, on horseback or camelback, and this is something that I think this goes back to the settler days in Kenya. You know, the original settler days, and there are many opportunities if you're a beginner, if you're an experienced rider. You know, if you had a private ranch, and this is typically the only place that you can do this is at private ranches. You can do it down in Savu, or just outside Savu in the Chilua Hills. You can do it in the Borana Conservancy. And it's a spectacular way of getting really up close to wildlife that you typically won't be able to do in a vehicle. Animals will look at you as being an animal, as part of, you know, this, you're on this horse or you're on a camel. And it's another experience. And if you want to go and do, you know, you can do a couple nights horseback safari or a camel safari. It's just a different way of seeing the landscape. Everything slows down. You take it all in. You hear so much more than you would on a vehicle, for example. You can cover much larger ground. So, you know, for me, I'm a horse person, I'm a horse. Yeah, and as I said, if you want to do something different, climb onto a camel and do it. Do the same thing on a camel.
I love that, but I love the fact that you're in nature, appreciating nature from the standpoint or the viewpoint of a nature, you know, a natural creature as well. I think that's, I think that'd be pretty special, actually. Quite a unique experience.
They often say that, you know, a Land Rover is the best 4x4 by far, and nothing will beat a horse or a camel. So if you really want to get into these real sort of out of the way areas and you want to be the only people in that area, do it on horseback.
Love it. And finally, visit our human origins. Interesting that in Egypt they always say Egypt is where it all began, but not the case, Warren. What we're saying is it all began right here.
So this I think we touched on this last week when we spoke about Tanzania and Oldupai Gorge. But way up in northern Kenya, sort of northwestern Kenya, you got Siboloi National Park on the eastern side of Lake Turkana. Now, Lake Turkana is the world's largest permanent desert lake. It's got a stunningly blue-green water, and it's often nicknamed the Jade Sea. It's got that sort of jadey color to it. And as I said, on the eastern shore, you'll find a 3 million year old Cubiflora paleontological site. And this was discovered by Dr. Richard Leakey in 1968. So we spoke about the Leakeys in Oldupai, and this was actually Richard Leakey's father and mother. So it's kept within the family. And, this is now universally recognized as the cradle of mankind. Just to give you an idea, if you visit one of the on-site museums at Cibolo, you can view, amongst many other fossil phenomena, but something like a 3 million year old giant tortoise, a 100 million year old elephant tusk, amongst many other finds. And that's just animals. When you start talking about hominins and our human origin, the earliest human ancestors have been found in the Turkana Basin, the Australopithecus. And those fossils were discovered by Meave Leakey in 1994. And that goes back to around 4 million years ago. So there's constant anthropological expeditions going on in this area. I was very fortunate enough to actually spend time with Richard Leakey and his wife Meave up in this region. They have an institute there called the Turkana Basin Institute. And they have two sort of camps, if I can put it like that, one on the eastern shores and one on the western shore. It was mind-blowing. That's all I can say. You look and you go and look for these old fossils of, we found a hippo tusk. You're always looking for human remains, fossils. But it's crazy. And your mind boggles with trying to understand how far back we go. And this whole Omo Valley now going into Ethiopia, which is literally, we're a stone's throw away from the Ethiopian border. The whole Omo Valley into Lake Turkana, this is the cradle of humankind. And as I mentioned last week, the reason they're able to sort of date almost to the date is because of all the volcanic activity that has happened in that region, of carbon dating the volcano ash, getting a layer of sediment, of water and river systems that have deposited, then you're getting another volcanic ash layer on top of it. So you get a very, very, very close idea of how old these specimens are. So yeah, if people are interested in this and just going to see something completely different, and you'll walk away from this place and this experience with a completely different look on life.
That's incredible. Like I said, when you talk about going back, 4 million years plus, it just barely fathomable, really, isn't it? It's just out of the realms of possibility. We keep talking about, the year 2000 and, wherever we are, 2020, and you think, God, that's just nothing. We are, we really are youngsters in all of this. Incredible.
Exactly.
So that's us for this week for Kenya. That was a whistle-stop tour of Kenya.
We've done well.
We've done well. We're kind of 12 minutes over, but that's okay. We always sort of say on these, we're aiming to give people just a bit of a whistle-stop tour and to give them a bit of a flavour as to what there are. And we were saying at the beginning, Warren, just off air, that we'd like to do a little bit of a deeper dive on maybe a handful of different parks in a lot of the different destinations that we've covered off at a later stage. And maybe any of our listeners and viewers out there, if you'd like to suggest any particular parks or subject matter within Africa that you'd like us to delve more into, then Warren, you're absolutely up for it. I'm up for it. Let us know in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube, and we'd love to do that. One of the sessions that we will be planning in the future will be a general Q&A with Warren, which he very kindly has agreed to do for us, which could be anything to do with your questions on Africa, on African wildlife, flora, fauna, and we'll get all of those done on one session in the next few weeks. However, next week we are going to low season Africa, Rwanda, Uganda, and the DRC. And I say next week, and I should point out, actually, it's going to be Monday, the 31st of August, for reasons which will become apparent in a moment. So that's 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks today, at the same times as usual. What have we got to look forward to in Rwanda, Uganda, and the DRC? I'm guessing it's gorillas, among other things.
Yes, Jed. I think the biggest draw card to that region are the gorillas, as well as chimpanzees. But there's so much more. For me, Rwanda, its history is incredible. From a negative, very sort of negative side of it to the positive side of today. It's got spectacular parks, not just sort of where you see the gorillas in volcanoes, but it's got Nungwe, massive primates populations. in there, Bogoria, which is all sort of savanna animals that you could think of that you'd find on any other typical safari. There's Uganda, which Winston Churchill actually referred to as the Pearl of Africa. Queen Elizabeth National Park, Bwindi Impenetrable Forest, Kibale, the Rwenzori Mountains, which a lot of people call the Mountains of the Moon. If you want activities like whitewater rafting on the Nile River, for example, or canoeing and boating safaris, you can climb volcanoes. We dive into the eastern part of the DRC, into Virunga National Park, where you can go and spend a night, on the rim of an active volcano, looking down into the world's largest open lava lake. I think I'm sort of having second doubts about whether we do this all at one, but it's just going to be, once again, just a taste of what is offered in that region. And I think people just need to remember that it is just a very small touch on what there is there.
Yeah, and like you said, we can always do a deeper dive at a later stage.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be in 2 weeks' time. At this juncture, we'll let you go on your way, Warren, and get on with your day. But huge thanks to you, and of course to our friends at Africa Rome, for your time and your expertise again this week on this Whistle Stop tour. And we're really looking forward to catching up with you in 2 weeks' time to learn more about Rwanda, Uganda, and the DRC. Looking forward to it. But thanks again, and have a great week, Warren.
I look forward to it, Jed. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks, cheers.
Yeah. Bye-bye, guys.
So there we go. So that was Warren. That was a good whistle stop tour that we just had. Want to point out for you all as well that all of the previous episodes in this series are available on YouTube. They're on Facebook, and we're also releasing them as podcasts on Spotify and iTunes, as well as any other place where you get your podcasts. We just released Botswana last week. Namibia will be released on Friday. So if you prefer to listen into those, obviously you'll have to make do without the photographs and the videos, but you might prefer to listen to them when you're in the car or on the commute or on the train. They're all going to be available on Spotify and iTunes as well. Next week, we've got a little bit of a special treat in store for you all. We've got a special guest next week, a gentleman by the name of Nick Middleton. Now, Nick Middleton is an award-winning geographer, writer, TV presenter, environmental scientist, and university lecturer. His curiosity about how planet Earth works and how people interact with it was fueled from an early age by his family's world atlas, Hergé's Adventures of Tintin, and an endless flow of Willard Price novels. Today, he works and communicates on a wide variety of environmental issues and travel topics for a broad range of audiences, from government policymakers to primary school children. He also teaches at the University of Oxford, where he is a fellow of St Anne's College. Nick is the author of 7 travel books, including the bestseller Going to Extremes, which accompanied a television series he wrote and presented for Channel 4 and the National Geographic Channel on extreme environments and the people who live in them. His TV documentaries have been broadcast all over the world, and his books translated into more than a dozen languages. Next week, we're delighted to have Nick Middleton with us. He's going to be taking your questions. He's going to be talking to us about Going to Extremes. So that was the very first book that he wrote on this subject matter, where he traveled to the world's hottest, wettest, driest, and coldest places to understand how people live in these different type of climate conditions. And I thought it'd be really interesting to have Nick on the show to talk about his experiences on recording Going to Extremes. But also because at the outset for Low Season Traveller, we're always about traveling at different times of the year, regardless of what the weather is like. We're looking for the adventure. And I think, Going to Extremes, with what Nick did, it kind of lends itself a little bit to the ethos of Low Season Traveller. For us, there's no bad weather anywhere in the world. There are different times of the year to experience the world. And yes, it might be hot or wet or dry or cold. But what we wanted to do is find out from Nick, are the experiences worthwhile? Was it worth traveling to understand and learn about the different experiences that you can have in these different extremes of climate? So we're going to be speaking to Nick next week. instead of on Monday, it's going to be on Thursday, the 27th of August. It's going to be at 6:30 UK time. That's 1:30 New York, 7:30 in the evening in Madrid, Cape Town, 6:30 in the evening, Dubai, 9:30 in the evening. So look forward to seeing you there for that. Finally, please do join the Low Season Traveller movement and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. You'll find us at Low Season Traveller. And it'd be great if you could sign up and follow us as we embark on this journey to encourage more travel and tourism during the low seasons in all of our wonderful destinations. That's our show for this week. Thank you so much for your company. Really appreciate it. If you've got any questions which you'd like us to put to Nick Middleton next week, or indeed to Warren Pearson for the following week, then please do add comments wherever you see this video or podcast. That's us. Thanks a million. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.